Fiona was content. She had slipped into a hypnotic rhythm induced by the gentle but insistent tapping of her fingers on the computer keyboard and the strains of Handel's Arrival of the Queen of Sheba on the kitchenette radio. Her long, slim fingers rippled with ease and grace over the keys, and the screen reflected back a faint image of her taut cheekbones, pale Irish skin, and golden-lidded moss-green eyes. She felt the caress of stray copper tendrils that slipped loose from the soft knot fashioned at the nape of her neck. Immersed in her review of a recent collection of short stories by Irish women writers, she was only vaguely aware of her surroundings, her tiny studio in a New York brownstone. The dark oak paneling and walls of bookcases, and the small multi-paned window high up near the ceiling which filtered in the waning evening light, were comforting in their peripheral caress. The sharp splatter of raindrops on the window broke the spell. Fiona glanced up and noticed the sky over Manhattan had darkened. Distant thunder rumbled as hail pelted down violently on the tiled roof. She felt the same fear in the pit of her stomach that she always felt when a storm was brewing. She forced herself to concentrate on the keyboard and to reason that the present assault on the window was only heavy rain and not shards of glass. It was almost June, summertime. Surely it couldn't last too long. Now her fingers pounded out an arrhythmic beat as she struggled to stay calm. Instead of words, images were forming. She was back in Ireland on the farm. It was over 2.5 decades ago, summer of 1964. She was 9 years old and crouched inside the secret treehouse in the trunk of the ancient oak with her 5-year-old sister, Orla. Lightning flashed, transforming bronze-haired, cinnamon-eyed Orla into an ethereal being. Thunder crashed and the girls thrilled with fear and excitement. They listened to the heavy rain which threatened to flood the earth, and at first they felt secure within their own little fortress. A fierce thunderstorm had exploded with a fury that stirred them up and made them feel daring. Like Alice in Wonderland, which Fiona was reading to Orla, they were having an adventure. Will we count? Fiona, can we count? Can we? Orla tugged at the hem of her thin cotton frock. Fiona forced herself to put on a brave smile. All right, ready? Orla nodded vigorously, breathless with excitement. And in Irish. I want to count in Irish. Orla was going to start primary school in September, and Fiona was teaching her letters and numbers in both Irish and English. She dramatically spread out all the fingers of her left hand, and as the lightning flared, they began to count in unison. A hain, a dó, a trí, a cahar, a cuig. A fierce thunderclap shrieked through the air. That's 5 miles away, isn't it? Orla was thrilled and clapped her hands. 5 seconds, 5 miles, isn't it, Fiona? Right, it would be about at Mullingar, I think. She tried to remember the maps of Ireland they drew in geography class. We're safe here, though, aren't we? Orla's laugh tinkled in tune with the next huge storm blast, and she started to count loudly again, marking out the numbers on her fingers. A hain, a dó, a trí, a cahar. Bang! Fiona swept up Alice in Wonderland and the colouring book and crayons from the ground. We're not going, are we? Orla shrieked. I don't want to go. Please let us stay. Please, Fiona. Please. Pretty, please. Before Fiona had time to answer, there was another lightning spike, and Orla started to shout out, a hain, a dó, a trí. Oh boy, Fiona, is it at Crigora yet? Do you think Mam and Dad are getting wet? How far away is Crigora, Fiona? It's not nearly as far away as 3 miles, about 2.5, maybe. And Mam and Dad, are they all right? Will they get sick? Orla was working herself into hysterics now. Is Mama coming home to us? Fiona gave her little sister a quick, urgent hug. Of course she's coming home, you nincompoop. Mama's all better now. She'll never leave us again. She watched as Orla moved instinctively for the doll in their mother's likeness that Fiona had made for Orla when Mam got tuberculosis and had to go away to a sanatorium for 2 years. The little girl clasped it to her chest. It's just a summer storm, Fiona tried to sound grown up and assured. She wrapped the books and crayons in a plastic sheet and tucked them into the wooden shelf that formed itself out of the inner tree trunk. And Mam and Dad are safe inside the chapel, so they won't get wet at all. Orla held the doll ever closer. A sudden wind blast ripped aside the first of the branches that shielded the entrance, and she screamed. Another onslaught stripped away the remaining twigs and leafy coverings, and the rain pelted in, dragged by the quickly rising gales. I don't want to chance making a run for the house. Fiona tried to keep the quiver out of her voice. We'd get drenched. And would I get sick again? Have to go away again to that awful hospital? Fiona choked on her dread. The doll's face, which had an eerie resemblance to her mamma's, taunted her. She grasped Orla even tighter, shook her head and mumbled, no. Another lightning flash. 1, 2. Orla's voice was high-pitched with equal parts terror and excitement. The sound of the thunder reverberated in the hollow of their tree-trunk haven. The layers of burlap sacks that served as their carpet began to seep with moisture. The low wooden curtain had initially protected them from the spreading wetness, but was now starting to disintegrate. Fiona, look, our floor! Orla shouted hysterically. Fiona stared hopelessly at the darkening stains as their socks and sandals got progressively soggier. Orla shivered, and Fiona hurriedly slung the green tartan rug round her shoulders. Here, this will keep you snug. She hugged her close. You'll be grand. I'll mind you. I promise you I will. The rain turned to heavy hailstones. The sisters were trapped, a part of nature, and the storm gathered round them with a growing fury. On the next flash, Orla buried her face in Fiona's chest. One, it was a hysterical scream. The little girl abandoned her counting game as the burlap sacks lining their hideout gave way and they were exposed to the full fury of the elements. Fiona finally sprung into action. Come on. She grabbed the old woolen rug, pulled it over both of their heads, took Orla's arm and sped out of their collapsing fortress. We have to run like mad, Orla. Run, run, as fast as you can. Like a two-headed Irish colleen with red and green tartan fringes flapping into their faces, they raced along the narrow, muddy path. Fiona half pushed, half carried her little sister in the crook of her arm. Their sandaled feet sunk into the dank mass, and they had to haul them out with every footstep. As Fiona dragged her along, Orla snagged her toe in a clump of intertwined twigs and fell headlong into the spongy brown muck. She screamed as she swallowed the mud and spluttered it out, spitting and choking with fear and rage. In a flash, Fiona was on her knees trying to extricate her from the slippery mess. Try to get a foothold if you can, and I'll pull you up. I can't. I'm trying. Orla was crying uncontrollably. Help me. Fiona grasped her tightly round the waist, stood up straight, and yanked as hard as she could. A zigzag of silver brilliance sizzled across the grey sky, followed almost immediately by a deafening thunderbolt as Fiona struggled to move them out of danger. A huge tug, a lunge forward, and both of them landed face down in the sludge. Orla's screams merged with the low rumbles. She lashed out and started to slap Fiona's arm. Orla, stop it. I'm trying my best. Fiona snapped angrily as she struggled to get a foothold and haul them both up again. But you're making me sick. It's all your fault, Orla wailed at the top of her lungs. There's muck in my mouth. It's yucky. Fiona sunk her feet into the soft earth with determination. She swallowed her heavy guilt, at first failing her little sister, and then getting angry at her. With gargantuan effort, she managed to drag them out and plough through to the end of the pathway. Orla was choking on her sobs. They circled the rising pond, bolted through the tree-lined lane, picked their way over the glimmering gravel until finally, after an eternity, they were in view of the looming farmhouse. It rose up out of the white rain shield like a haunted castle, grey and forbidding. Orla hacked and coughed. The outline of the slate roof was barely discernible, and the chimney stacks jutted defiantly into the angry skies. Fiona glanced sideways at her sister, hoping and praying that she wouldn't get pneumonia, and pulled the soaking rug tighter around her thin shoulders. We're nearly there, Orla. There's the house. Look. Orla glanced up through her veil of tears and nodded when she saw the outline of their home. She shivered under Fiona's protective arm, and they ran the last few feet through the yard up to the front door. Their 12-year-old brother, Declan, with his helmet of flaming orange curls, stood sentry stiff in the massive oak doorway and radiated a piercing glare of disapproval. You got her all wet. I couldn't help it. Well, where were you? What the hell took you so long? Would you get out of my way, Declan? I need to get her in and dried off. In a flash, Declan reached over, snatched Orla, encircled her with his arm, and ushered her quickly into the safety of the house. Fiona, rooted to the spot, stood stock still in the pelting rain and stared hopelessly after them. The tartan rug flapped violently in the gale and whipped her bedraggled body. Weeks later, Orla was dead.